With a warm smile and comforting words, he guided his flock through life's joys and sorrows. But behind closed doors, a sinister reality festered. The small-town pastor's facade of piety hid a dark underbelly, and one fateful night, his secret would be splattered across the floor in a tragic, bloody climax. The congregation would later recall subtle signs they had missed, but the truth would leave them reeling. The man they trusted most was a stranger in their midst. Before diving into the gripping details of this story, don't forget to share where you're watching and subscribe to our channel to stay updated with more exciting stories. The town of Willow Creek was the kind of place where everyone waved at stop signs and church bells marked the hours like a heartbeat. Pastor Daniel Reeves was the pulse of that rhythm, charming, gentle, and impossibly devoted. His Sunday sermons could bring even the most stoic farmer to tears, and his voice carried the weight of someone who had truly seen God. But behind that calm smile and soft-spoken grace, Daniel carried a secret, one so dark it would unravel the very soul of Willow Creek. It began one stormy Thursday night. The church lights flickered against the stained glass as Daniel knelt before the altar, whispering not prayers but apologies. On the pulpit, hidden beneath a false panel, lay a small black box. Inside it, a blood-stained photograph, a wedding ring that wasn't his, and a key engraved with the number 214. Miles away, the local sheriff, Claire Whitman, sat in her cruiser, the rain tapping like fingers on the roof. Dispatch crackled to life. Possible disturbance at St. Michael's Church. Caller hung up before identifying themselves. Claire's brow furrowed. St. Michael's. Daniel's church. When she arrived, the doors were wide open. Candle wax pooled on the floor like tears, and the storm wind howled through the nave. At the front, Daniel lay slumped beside the altar, blood blooming across his white collar. The Bible lay open to Proverbs 28 verse 13, "Whoever conceals their sins does not prosper, but the one who confesses and renounces them finds mercy." Only Daniel hadn't confessed. Not to anyone. The congregation was shattered. The following Sunday, instead of a sermon, there was silence. His widow, Margaret, wept in the front pew, clutching a rosary so tightly it left marks in her palms. But then something strange happened. As the sheriff's office began to investigate, small cracks appeared in the image of the perfect pastor. A bank account no one knew about. Late-night drives out of town. Whispered arguments overheard behind the church. And then came the photograph. Sheriff Whitman found it tucked in the back of Daniel's desk, a picture of him, arm around a young woman, standing in front of a roadside motel. The same woman reported missing 2 weeks earlier. The townsfolk refused to believe it. Not Pastor Reeves. But the truth was no longer optional. The black box from beneath the pulpit had vanished, and whoever took it knew exactly what was inside. That night, as Claire reviewed the evidence board in her office, the lights flickered once, then went out completely. Her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "You're looking in the wrong place, Sheriff." He wasn't the only one hiding something. Attached was a photo, taken just minutes ago, of the inside of her own home. The message ended with a single line. "Do you want to know what your pastor was protecting?" Sheriff Claire Whitman's heart slammed against her ribs as she stared at the message. The photo showed her living room, the lamp she'd left on, the half-drunk coffee mug beside her chair, the open file folder on the table. Whoever sent it wasn't just threatening her. They were inside her house. She grabbed her service weapon and sped through the rain-slicked streets toward home, headlights cutting through the darkness like blades. When she arrived, the door was closed, locked, nothing out of place. But on the floor, just inside the doorway, lay a single white envelope. Inside it was a key. Brass, worn. The number 214 etched faintly into the metal. The same number from the key found in Pastor Reeves's secret box. Her stomach turned. She'd logged that evidence herself, so how did it end up here? At the station, she pulled every file on Reeves's past, property records, financials, old sermons. Nothing about a hotel room or a double life. Then she found it, an old police report from 15 years ago, back when Reeves had first moved to Willow Creek. The report was sealed, but the title wasn't, Incident at Red Hollow Motel, Room 214. Red Hollow had burned down a decade ago. A fire, they'd said. No survivors. Claire's hand trembled as she slid the key into her pocket and drove to the site. The ruins of the old motel were nothing but a blackened skeleton now, hidden beneath vines and decades of dust. Yet when she reached the doorframe of what used to be room 214, she saw something new, a fresh chain lock, recently cut. Someone had been here. Recently. She pushed the door open. The smell hit her first, mildew, ashes, and something else. Something metallic. The beam from her flashlight swept across the room and caught the corner of a mirror, cracked but still standing. On the wall behind it, words had been carved into the plaster. "Forgive me, Daniel. I couldn't keep it buried." Claire froze. There was a faint sound, not from outside, but beneath her. A hollow echo under the floorboards. She crouched and pried up a loose plank. A small wooden chest sat beneath, wrapped in a decaying cloth. Inside, more photographs. The missing woman again. Others, men, women, children. Dozens of them. All smiling. All standing beside Pastor Reeves. And every one of them had been reported missing between 2007 and 2013. Claire's breath caught. Reeves wasn't a man of God. He was something else entirely. Her phone buzzed again. Another message. "You shouldn't have gone there." She turned toward the door, but this time, the beam of her flashlight caught movement. A figure stood just beyond the doorway, half hidden by the rain and mist. Tall. Motionless. Watching her. Her gun rose automatically. "Sheriff Whitman," the voice said softly, calm, familiar. She froze. That voice, it couldn't be. The figure stepped closer, light spilling across his face. It was Pastor Daniel Reeves. Or at least, someone who looked exactly like him. Claire's breath fogged in the cold air as the man stepped into the beam of her flashlight. His face, identical to Pastor Reeves, was pale, his eyes shadowed but alive. Too alive. "Impossible," she whispered. "You're dead." He smiled faintly, the same soft, pastoral smile that had once blessed every Sunday service in Willow Creek. "Death," he murmured, "isn't as permanent as people think." Claire's gun trembled in her grip. "Don't move." He didn't. He only looked at her with a strange pity. "You shouldn't have come here, Sheriff. This place, it remembers things. It calls people back." Her radio crackled with static, cutting through the silence. A voice, Deputy Harris, came through, strained and panicked. "Sheriff? You need to come back now. The pastor's body, it's gone." The words hit her like a slap. She looked up from the radio, but the man was already gone. The doorway yawned empty, rain pouring down like the sky itself was weeping. She stumbled outside, scanning the ruins with her light, shouting his name, Daniel. But there was nothing but the echo of her own voice. Then, through the sheets of rain, she saw tire tracks, fresh, cutting a path toward the woods behind. The old motel. By the time she reached the station again, chaos had erupted. The morgue drawer where Daniel Reeves's body had been stored was empty. No signs of forced entry. Cameras blacked out for 23 minutes. Margaret Reeves, the pastor's widow, was sitting in the waiting room, eyes red but calm in a way that chilled Claire. "I told you," Margaret said softly. "You can't bury what doesn't want to stay buried." Claire leaned forward. "Mrs. Reeves, who was your husband, really?" Margaret met her eyes, and smiled. Not grief. Not fear. Something else. Not my husband, she whispered. My brother. Claire froze. Your brother? Margaret nodded slowly. The Real Daniel died 20 years ago. In this town. In that motel. The room tilted. Then who was the man we buried? Margaret's eyes glistened. Someone who wanted to finish what Daniel started. Someone who found what was hidden beneath the church. Before Claire could ask another question, her phone buzzed again. A video this time. It showed the inside of the church, the altar flickering in candlelight. Someone was walking toward the pulpit. The camera tilted, and the face came into view. Daniel Reeves, or whoever he was, looked directly into the lens. Forgive me, Sheriff. You've already opened the door. Now it's your turn to confess. Then, behind him, the floorboards began to move, as if something underneath the altar was alive. The video cut to black. And somewhere, far off in the night, the church bells began to ring, even though the clock read 3:17 a.m. The church bells tolled again, each note deeper than the last, echoing through the empty town like a warning. 3:17 a.m. No one should have been ringing them. Sheriff Claire Whitman gripped the steering wheel until her knuckles turned white. The storm had passed, but the mist still clung to the road like smoke. Her mind raced with Margaret's words, not my husband. My brother. She parked outside St. Michael's Church. The doors were open again, swaying gently in the wind. Inside, candles flickered though no one had lit them. The scent of burning wax and damp earth filled the air. The pulpit, where she'd found Pastor Reeves's body days earlier, was bare. But something new was carved into the altar, confess or be consumed. Her flashlight caught movement in the shadows. Margaret Reeves was there, standing before the altar, dressed in black. Her hands were clasped around a silver crucifix, its chain glinting faintly. You shouldn't have come back, Margaret whispered. I'm not leaving until I get answers. Margaret's eyes glistened. You already have them. You just don't understand what they mean. Try me. Margaret stepped closer, her expression collapsing between sorrow and madness. My brother Daniel was the first. He heard it, the voice beneath the floor. It promised salvation for everyone in Willow Creek. But when he tried to leave, it wouldn't let him. Claire frowned. The voice? Margaret nodded. It lives below. It takes the faithful, one by one. And when Daniel died, he became part of it. The man you buried, he wasn't Daniel. He was what's left when the voice finishes feeding. Before Claire could respond, a deep groan echoed from beneath the church floor, wood bending, cracking. The candles flared, then dimmed. Margaret backed away, shaking. It's awake. The floor beneath the altar began to split, dust and splinters flying into the air. Something was pushing upward from below, slow, deliberate, wet. Claire drew her weapon, but what good was a bullet against this? Margaret screamed. You brought it back. You opened the door when you found that box. The crack widened, and a hand, pale, blood-slicked, unmistakably human, reached through the floorboards. Then another. The hands gripped the edge of the altar, pulling up the rest of a body. It was Pastor Reeves, his face half-rotted, his eyes burning with an unnatural light. He smiled, and when he spoke, his voice came in two tones, layered, one human, one ancient. You searched for the truth, Sheriff, now you serve it. Claire stumbled back, gun raised. What are you? Confession. The candles went out. Darkness swallowed everything. Then, a single gunshot. A scream. And silence. When the church doors creaked open minutes later, only one figure stepped out. It was Sheriff Whitman. Or at least, it looked like her. Her eyes glowed faintly in the darkness. She smiled at the quiet town and whispered to the wind. Sunday service begins at dawn. By dawn, Willow Creek was too quiet. No birds. No wind. Just the steady, rhythmic toll of the church bell that no one had touched since the night before. The townspeople gathered outside St. Michael's, drawn not by invitation, but by something they couldn't name, a pull, soft and insistent, like gravity in their bones. Sheriff Claire Whitman stood at the altar. Her uniform was spotless, her posture calm. But her eyes had changed. They glowed faintly gold beneath the candlelight, as if the fire lived behind them now. "Good morning, my flock," she said, her voice carrying through the nave like a hymn. The crowd hushed. She smiled, that same gentle, reassuring smile Pastor Reeves used to wear. "We've all lost something, haven't we? A pastor. A brother. Our peace. But today," she continued, stepping closer to the pulpit, "we'll gain something far greater." Margaret Reeves stood near the front row, trembling. "Please," she whispered. "Claire, you have to fight it." Claire tilted her head, eyes soft with pity. "Fight? There's nothing to fight. It only wants truth." She reached beneath the pulpit and lifted the old black box, the one she'd thought was evidence. It pulsed faintly now, as if it had a heartbeat. "This is what he died for. The voice beneath the church isn't a curse. It's a covenant. It's been waiting for us to listen." The floor trembled. Cracks spidered across the altar, spreading through the pews. The townsfolk began to murmur, fear rippling through them, but none ran. None could. Margaret stepped forward, tears streaking her face. "You don't know what you're doing." Claire looked down at her, sorrow in her glowing eyes. "I do. For the first time, I see." She opened the box. A blinding light burst forth, not holy, but heavy, hungry. It poured through the cracks, spreading beneath the townspeople's feet. They fell to their knees, clutching their chests, gasping as whispers filled the air, the same ancient voice Margaret had spoken of. "Confess. Be consumed." The church walls pulsed like living skin. Faces flickered in the stained glass, the missing townsfolk, the young woman, even Pastor Reeves himself, all smiling in silent unison. Margaret screamed and lunged forward, grabbing the box. "If it wants confession, then take mine." She threw herself onto the altar, pressing the box against her chest. The light surged, swallowing her whole. For a heartbeat, the church fell silent. Then, boom! The light imploded. Every candle snuffed out. Dust and smoke filled the air. When it cleared, the altar was split open. The box was gone. And so was Margaret. Only Claire remained, standing in the ruins. Her glow had faded. Her eyes were her own again. She stared at her trembling hands, whispering, "What have I done?" Outside, the sun rose, pale, washed out. The town of Willow Creek stood untouched, peaceful once more. From Margaret Reeves. "It's still hungry." The screen flickered once, and then every light in town went out at once.